doing today?
When I had my spring break of 7th grade, I haven't went to school. I haven't been in person since my 9th grade freshman year. I haven't been in person since September of.
Well, you're in person now.
I know, but no, when I was in spring break, 7th grade, I haven't went back to school since September
Okay.
1st.
Yep. Well, there's a state law that says you cannot start school before September 1st in Wisconsin.
I know, but that
Or
was
the Monday after Labor Day, whichever one comes
COVID.
first. Correct, but that had nothing to do with COVID. That law was in effect long before that.
That law
So-
was in effect when I was in high school.
Yeah, that law was put into effect because of tourism in Door County, basically. They didn't want to lose all their workers before the end of summer, so they've made a law that says you can't start school before Labor Day or September 1st, whichever one comes first. So, but
But we
anyway.
get to avoid that law.
What?
We get to avoid that law.
Well,
Next school year.
next year we filed for a waiver, and there are ways other school districts have avoided it. I have a friend who teaches down in Chilton, and they started school this year early because they're doing construction on their building.
Oh, yep.
So to give them more time over the summer to finish their job, they get to start school early.
Where is Chilton?
Chilton is basically southwest of here.
Oh,
Like it's like a little further than Appleton and a little bit more west than Appleton. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, if you would take out your computers, we're going to finish up the unit today. And that way tomorrow we could do some reviewing for our test. But also, if there is anyone who is going on the band trip or for some reason you're going to be gone tomorrow or Friday because of spring break, leaving early or whatever, you could take the test early tomorrow and get it out of the way so that you don't have to do it when you come back after a week off of school. So again, we can make those arrangements if you need to. You just need to let me know so that we can set it up so that you don't have to wait until after spring break to do so. So just let me know, ladies and gentlemen, and we can make that happen for you. Alexa, all right.
Doing another lab.
No, we're not doing a lab. We did the lab. There's a number of you who did not get it finished. Hopefully at the end of the hour today, there will be some time for you to work on the worksheet and possibly get that lab finished and turned in. But I've graded the ones that were turned in from you guys. I haven't put them in the grade book yet. But again, if you're missing labs, your grade is going to go down. You're missing 20% of your grade, and that's not a good thing. So, well, good, perfect. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. So we've been doing a lot of talking about food and things, ladies and gentlemen. The other day we talked about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are our energy source. Today we're going to talk about fats. We're going to talk about proteins and a little bit about vitamins and minerals. So that'll basically wrap up the unit for us. Again, our test is on Friday, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have a question of the day for you. I did put out a Quizlet today, this morning, so that you can take and start looking it over. It'll have the type of questions that are going to be on your test on Friday, or at least the review of the topics that's going to be on there for you, so that hopefully you can get that done and get that put in. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are the things that we have done so far in this unit. The two really important ones is number one, the energy and food lab, because that's a lab, and the electrolyte lab. These other ones, these worksheets, well, they will help you with getting ready for your test. They are graded. They are put into the grade book, but they do not count towards your grade. Okay? So it basically comes down to this lab, these two quizzes, and then your test on Friday will be your grade. And your test on Friday will be worth half of your grade, basically. Okay? Half of your grade is how you do on the test. So if you're not doing well right now and you do well on the test, your grade will be very good. If you're not doing well right now and you don't do well on the test, your grade will be terrible. Okay? So that is what it is, and that's the way the class works. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you will take care of it. Okay? Now, again, we talked about carbohydrates. I am not going to show you a picture of a carbohydrate and ask you to tell me what kind of carbohydrate it is. I am not going to ask you to name a carbohydrate. I will ask you what a monosaccharide is, one simple sugar. What a disaccharide is, two simple sugars. What a polysaccharide is, many simple sugars. I will ask you the difference between a sugar and a starch. A starch is a polysaccharide, a long chain of sugars put together, but because it's a long chain, we then call it a starch instead of a simple sugar. Okay? Starches, sugars, very high in calories, very high in energy for us, ladies and gentlemen. And it is the body's source of energy, coming from three major elements. Carbon, right there, ooh, turn it on. Carbon right there, hydrogen right there, and oxygen right there. Those are the only three ingredients in carbohydrates. Okay? Now, the fuel for your car is an alkane. It is a compound that contains carbon and hydrogen without the oxygen, but basically the same kind of compound. Okay? All of those are organic, which is why someday you may end up being fossil fuel and fuel for somebody else's car. Now, it would probably be 1,000,000 years from now. Probably at that time, cars are not going to be fueled by gasoline. It will be fueled by something else because we will already have run out of it. So don't worry too much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, fats and lipids. By the way, if you say fats, lipids means the same thing. Lipids is the more scientific term for it, okay? Now, when people think of fats, when people think of lipids, they think of sweets, but it is not just sweets. Because actually, the main thing in sweets are what? Sugar, carbohydrate, okay? So these are fats. These are things like avocados. Now, avocados, ladies and gentlemen, are actually a pretty good fat for you, okay? So there are some fats that are good fats. There are some fats that are bad fats, okay? So avocados, that's a good fat. Fish oil, things like omegas, things like that. Actually a pretty good fat for you, and your body needs some of those fats, okay? But things like butter, things like sour cream, things like cottage cheese, some of those things also have fats in them, and they may or may not necessarily be the best thing for you, okay? Helen, when you get a minute, please put your coat away, or it has to go back out in the hall.
And when
Okay,
I looked
if you can fit it in your
for the
backpack, that's
electrolyte
fine.
part, they said avocados were electrolytes also.
Okay, but you didn't read the question. The question on the lab was name a solution that is an electrolyte. Now, again,
The common household.
I know the questions, though. You didn't listen to me, though, did you? I said you need a solution. Is an avocado a liquid? And that's not a solution, okay? That's not a solution. So again, there are some things. Pickles are brined in salt. Well, we know salt water is an electrolyte, correct? We showed you that yesterday. So if you would have said pickle juice, yes. But if you say pickle, no, because a pickle's not a solution. It's not a liquid, okay? So that was the thing we were looking for in there, all right? By the way, things like nuts, things like cheeses, things like chocolate, all have a lot of fats in them. And by the way, people think fats are bad. They are not necessarily all bad, okay? So if the purpose of a carbohydrate is to give us energy, what is the purpose of a fat in the body? Nope. Fats store energy. Thank you. Again, they are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The same thing that sugars are made up of. Much different ratios, though. Okay? And they store energy in the body. That is literally their job. Okay? Literally their job is to store energy in the body. Now, the other day when we talked about carbohydrates, we said 3,500 extra calories amount to 1 pound of weight that you would gain. Well, when your body stores those carbohydrates, when it puts them away for you to use later, it puts them away as fats. Okay? It puts them away as fats. And again, the body needs some fats. Even the most finely tuned, even the most finely fit athletes still have some body fat on them. Why? Because everyone needs an energy reserve. And that's what fats do. Okay? Now, 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories of energy. 9 calories. How does that compare to a carbohydrate? Anybody remember what it was for a carbohydrate? It was 4. So this is a lot more. Remember in your lab, what food burned the best? Nuts. Down here at the bottom. They gave off the most energy. Why? They're fats. The oil's in there, what was burning. As a matter of fact, some of you might have actually saw the oil dripping off of the nut as it was burning. You might have also found that with the chips, which contained a lot of oils, a lot of fats. The marshmallow was mostly what? Sugar. Sugar. So actually, the marshmallow produced the least amount of energy. Why?
And it turned black in the exit space?
It did. So did the nut. So did the chip. All turned black. Why? That was the carbon in those foods after you were done. Same thing that is in wood after you have burned it. The carbon debris of it. Okay? But with the marshmallows, again, mostly sugars, only 4 calories of energy per gram. Okay? Where a fat has 9. Okay? Fats have a lower percentage of oxygen compared to carbohydrates. Less oxygen. In carbohydrates, there's a lot of oxygen. In carbohydrates, the functional group is that OH, that alcohol, not so much in a fat. And we'll show you what they look like in a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? There is more stored energy in a fat than in a carb. So why doesn't your body burn fats? If there's more energy in it, why doesn't your body just process the fats we eat and use that for energy?
Isn't it like harder to do that?
Thank you. It is actually harder for the body to process a fat than it is to process a carbohydrate. In other words, in the end, the body, even though it gets less energy out of a carbohydrate, that's what we're set up to burn. That's what we're set up to burn. Now, what will your body do if it doesn't have any carbohydrates in it? It'll burn fat. It'll burn fat. There was a diet craze years ago where people stopped eating carbs. They took them out of their diet. Is that keto now? I'm not that familiar with it. But the idea was if you take away your energy source, what does your body do? Burns the fats in your body. People would lose weight. The problem is as soon as you stop, when you go back to eating carbs, most people didn't change their eating habits. So they would go back to eating a lot of carbs, they'd put the weight back on. The idea of a diet is to change your habits. And that is the most difficult thing for people to do permanently. They will do it temporarily for a while, but normally not very permanently. Okay, good. So again, like you just said, Christopher, it's harder to burn a fat in the body than it is a carbohydrate. It's just not what we're set up for. Okay, not what we're set up for. All right, now there were 3 types of carbohydrates. There are 3 types of fats. The first is what is called a saturated fat. Okay, we've used the term saturated before. What does saturated mean? At the maximum. Thank you. If you remember our saturated solutions, where a solution holding at the maximum can't hold anymore, that's what a saturated fat is. It's a fat where all the carbons are what are called being singly bonded. There are no double bonds. So if all of your carbon atoms in a compound are singly bonded, that is called a saturated fat, ladies and gentlemen. So again, that saturated means holding the maximum. In this case, it's holding the maximum amount of hydrogens. It cannot hold any more. It's got all that it can handle. Okay? Now, these are normally fats that are solids at room temperature. Can you give me an example of a fat that's a solid at room temperature? Butter. Lard. margarine, things like that, things that are solids at room temperature. Okay? Even coconut oil. Coconut oil is one of the newer things that people are using. You buy it, it comes in a big jar, you put it into a pan, and my wife makes popcorn with it all the time. Yes. What about what?
Tallow.
Bone fat?
Yeah.
That would be a saturated fat. As a general rule, if the fat is a solid at room temperature, it will be what is called a saturated fat. Even my parents used to, well, my dad, when he would cook, and whenever he made bacon, there was a jar on the counter, and he would take the bacon fat and put it into the jar when he was done. Now, what state would it get to when it cools?
Solid.
It would become a solid, and then he would use that when he would cook other foods if he needed oils in it. Why? Because bacon is good, ladies and gentlemen, and bacon fat gives you that flavor. Okay? These are the ones that are bad for your health, though, as well. Solid, saturated fats cause what they call hardening of the arteries. Okay? Imagine taking the straw like Jaslyn has in her orange juice. Okay? And that is like the arteries in your body, and the blood moves through it. Well, what can happen with saturated fats is little pieces of fat that are in the bloodstream will start sticking to the walls of your artery. And eventually they will plug it up, basically. And it would be like taking a piece of clay and putting it in that straw and then trying to drink through it around the clay. You're not going to get as much liquid through it as easily. Well, that's what happens in the body. So if you've ever heard of anybody who has had bypass surgery, what they literally are doing is their arteries have become so blocked that they have to bypass them and find a different route for the blood to flow. Okay? And if you heard of somebody who's had a double or a triple or a quadruple bypass, that's how many different pathways were closed down that they had to find new routes for the blood. Okay? They had to find new routes for the blood. Okay? Then there is what is called a monounsaturated fat. Okay, what's mono mean? One. Means one. Unsaturated means we are no longer holding the maximum. Okay? So what that means for a fat, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is one double bond somewhere in the carbon chain. And again, I will show you what this looks like just so that you can understand it better, because I realize this is probably not making a lot of sense right now as far as one double bond in a carbon chain, but we will show you that. Okay? These are fats. Some of them are liquids, some of them are solids, because there's only one double bond in there. Okay? So some of them, depending on what they are, act more like saturated fats. Some of them act more like the next type of fat that we're going to talk about. Okay? Things like olive oil, canola oil, peanut oil, these are monounsaturated fats. Okay? And actually, any fat, ladies and gentlemen, even coconut oil, even lard, butter, there are probably some of each of these fats in there. It's which one is there a majority of. Okay? Which one is there a majority of? The last one is polyunsaturated. Poly, again, meaning many. Now, what did it mean to be unsaturated? Well, below the maximum, and why? Because there was a 1 in the compound. What made this monounsaturated? There was one double bond. So what do you think is in the polyunsaturated? Many double bonds. More than one double bond somewhere in the chain. Every time there's a double bond, and I'll show you this in a minute again, you lose the spot where you can hold a couple hydrogens. Okay? So if you have multiple double bonds, you're losing more spots where you can hold hydrogen. That's what makes it polyunsaturated. These are all liquids at room temperature, ladies and gentlemen, and these, of the three, are the better for you kind of fats. Okay? So sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil, again, it has some mixture, but again, in cooking recently, we're taking a lot of this out, which is the stuff that like my grandparents would have cooked with, and we've gone to replacing it with some of these and some of these, okay? Years ago when they cooked, they put lard in everything. Lard was what they would use to start when they started cooking. So if nowadays we put olive oil or canola oil or one of these other oils in a pan and cook with it. Years ago they started with lard. Okay, they started with lard. Okay. So here, ladies and gentlemen, the top picture is a fat, the bottom picture is a fat. What do you notice about the top picture compared to the bottom one? Okay, it's not all even. Here, H is all the way across the top and all the way across the bottom, right? Go ahead, Ethan.
The bottom one has less hydrogens than the top one.
Thank you. So this is what we mean by a saturated fat. There is no other place where you could put anything else on here. Every carbon has 4 things around it. Every carbon is completely filled. Here, some of these carbons are missing spots where hydrogens could be. Excuse me. Mr. Brand. Yes. Sure, we'll do. Okay, back. Okay, Victoria, Zoe, you guys need to head down to attendance and take your stuff with you. Okay, so again, so what would this one be as far as the 3 types of fat? Saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. This is what we mean by a saturated fat. Then what is this one? Well, you're right, it is unsaturated. But is it a poly or is it a mono? Unsaturated. See you later.
See you, Mr. Brand.
Poly. Here's a double bond. Here's a double bond. Here's a double bond. This is a polyunsaturated fat. And now you can see what we mean by we're losing a spot where hydrogens could be. The double bond takes away a place where we could put hydrogens. That is the difference between these. So this is a saturated fat, no double bonds. This is a polyunsaturated fat, 3 double bonds. And by the way, this end here is what is called another functional group. It is called a carboxylic acid. Not something you need to know. But again, when we compare this to a carbohydrate, remember the carbohydrate, how you would have a hydrogen on top of a carbon and an OH on the bottom? You don't have that here. You don't have that here. You have all these hydrogens here. Okay? All of these hydrogens here. Questions? Now, this is what I was telling you about just a minute ago, ladies and gentlemen. So here's canola oil, and it is actually 58% monounsaturated fat, 36% polyunsaturated fat, and 6% saturated. So there is a mixture of each in there, okay? Then you get to coconut oil. Coconut oil is 92% saturated fat, 2% polyunsaturated, 6% monounsaturated, okay? So again, that's why coconut oil is a solid at room temp, but canola oil is a liquid at room temp. It contains many more of the unsaturated fats, whereas this one contains many more of the saturated fat. Here you go. Here's your beef tallow that you were asking about, okay? Here's lard, 41%. So again, I'm not going to make you memorize those. I don't expect you to know those, just so that you can see that any fat is kind of a mixture of the 3 types. Okay? All right. Okay, that's it for fats, ladies and gentlemen. Now, literally, the type of questions that you will be asked on the test: what are the 3 ingredients in a fat? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Understand or explain the difference between a saturated and an unsaturated fat. What's the difference between a polyunsaturated and a monounsaturated? So understanding those prefixes. Okay? Questions? Okay. So carbohydrates are energy source. Fats are energy storage. What are proteins used for in the body? What's the purpose of proteins? What? Proteins are the building blocks. Yes, muscle, tissue, ligaments, hair,
I
eyebrows.
thought that was like collagen.
Type of protein comes from proteins. Okay? So, things that are high in proteins. Meat, fish, nuts should be in here too, yes. Things like beans, okay, certain types of vegetables, peas. There are a lot of things. Even eggs are high in protein. They were in the slide with the fats. So again, something like an egg can have proteins, can have fats in it. Fish, good source of protein, also good source of healthy fats, healthy oils. Okay? So multiple things in there. Okay? Proteins, ladies and gentlemen, again, made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but now we add one more element, nitrogen. Nitrogen. Okay? So we add one more element, nitrogen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? These are the building blocks for the body. These are the things that make things up. Okay? So again, if you are a person who is into fitness, okay, people who work out will take and build muscle. The problem is the body needs the ingredients to build muscle. So if you don't eat proteins and work out, while your body is trying to make muscle, there's nothing there for it to make it out of. So you have to take in proteins. But what will people do? They'll shortcut it. If their diet doesn't allow them to eat a lot of proteins, they'll take a protein supplement. They'll drink protein shakes or something like that, which will put protein in their body for building blocks. Okay? These building blocks in the body are called amino acids. And amino acids can turn into glycogen, they can turn into muscle, they can turn into tissue and ligaments and things like that. These are the building blocks for all things in the body. So your fingernails are a specialized type of proteins, basically. Okay, made up of these amino acids. Okay? The amino acids link together into polymers. That's long chains, like we talked about with a starch. Okay? And just like with a starch, a polysaccharide, all these sugar molecules link together. Same thing here. Proteins links these polymers together. Okay? Links these polymers together. Okay? These polymers can become tissue, bone, hair, skin. Now, I know you're sitting there going, wait a minute, I thought bone was carbon, was calcium-based. It is, but again, you still need other proteins in there to combine with that to make the bone, okay? To make the tissue, the hair, the skin, okay? 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. What's that equal to? A carb. So still the best actual total amount of energy in a food comes from a fat. 9 calories. As opposed to 4. Okay? So what is the purpose of proteins? Okay? Proteins have different purposes in the body. Number one, there are what are called structural proteins. What does that mean? It helps actually make the building blocks. The muscles, the membranes, the tissues, your hair, your nails, things like that. Anything that is part of your structure is a structural protein. Okay? Anything that is part of your structure is a structural protein. Okay? Things like actin, okay? Then there are what are called transport proteins, okay? What do you think they do? They move things around in the body. They move things around in the body, okay? They carry substances. One of the most important proteins in the body is hemoglobin. What does hemoglobin carry? Throughout your body, to your cells. That is absolutely needed. What? Take a deep breath and think about it. Oxygen. 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 Do you know what the main ingredient in hemoglobin is? What is something that easily attracts oxygen in our everyday world all around us?
Hydrogen.
No. Oh. What?
Carbon.
Nope. I have good guesses, but I'm thinking it's a problem in our everyday life that oxygen attaches to this other element and then creates something that we don't want to happen to certain substances. Iron. And in our everyday life, when oxygen attaches to iron, we call it rusting. Well, in your body, There's iron in your blood that grabs the oxygen and helps carry it around to where it needs to go. That's a good thing. Okay? So literally in your body is iron. Now please do not go out and try to eat an iron, statue or an iron thing. But if you take your Captain Crunch, if you take your morning cereal, which is iron fortified, a lot of them, put it in a bag, take a rolling pin, crush it up. Put it into a liquid like milk or water. Take a magnet off your fridge, put it on the side, you'll literally pull the iron right out of it. You'll see the iron in it. Okay? It's that kind of iron, yes. Very small amounts, very tiny pieces, but it is needed in the bloodstream to carry oxygen around to the cells. Okay? So, ferritin is the technical name for a transport protein. Again, examples I'm not going to worry about with you. Okay? But I do expect you to know structural proteins, transport proteins, and then regulatory proteins. What is a regulatory protein? A regulatory protein basically keeps your body in balance. Too much of any one thing is a bad thing for you. Okay? People are like, well, I'm healthy. I drink water. I drink 12 gallons of water a day. Oh my gosh. That can be a bad thing for you. People are like, no, you can't drink too much water. Yes, you can. You can drink too much water. That is a bad thing for you. Okay? Because it throws off the natural balances in your body. You need to maintain those, but you don't want to overdo it. But people sometimes will. These regulatory proteins help to maintain homeostasis. Help to keep your body where it needs to be. Okay? What was that? There's radioactive substances in bananas. There's radioactive substances in carbon. There's radioactive substances in water. There's radioactive substances in the air you're breathing. Again, very tiny, small quantities, and we'll get into this in the nuclear unit later on. Okay? But yeah, radioactivity is all around us. Yes, bananas, which are great for stopping you from cramping up, aren't or do have radioactive substances in them. Okay? They do. So regulatory proteins help maintain salt balances, help maintain the pH of your blood. Who in here drinks coffee? Orange juice? Coffee and orange juice. One of them is very basic, coffee. One of them is very acidic, orange juice. They will try to change the pH of your blood. They will try to change the pH of your blood. If your blood gets too acidic, that is bad because it will kill off the white blood cells. If your blood gets too basic, that is bad. It will kill off the white blood cells. What are white blood cells good for?
Like fighting off, like bacteria.
They're part of your immune system. They're part of your immune system, yes. If you kill those off, that's a bad thing. So your body has proteins in it that will make sure, okay, Jaslyn has a big glass of orange juice in the morning. Her body doesn't become too acidic from it. You drink a big cup of coffee in the morning, your body doesn't become too basic from it. Okay? That's the purpose of these regulatory proteins. Okay? Now we talked the other day about electrolytes, right? Mm-hmm. Ions in solution. Okay? Hopefully you watched the videos. Your body needs ions in it. So when athletes sweat, they not only lose water, they lose ions as well in their sweat. So now you drink an electrolyte to not only replenish the fluids, but to replenish those electrolytes, those salts, those sodiums, those chlorines as well. Now years ago, before they had Gatorade, at football practice, they used to have salt tablets out for the players. You would take salt tablets with water before you would start going out and practice. Why? They knew you were going to lose the salt, the ions, so you were putting them in your body before you ever lost them. Nowadays, you drink a Gatorade. It puts them back in there for you. Okay? Or now the newest one is Pedialyte. Again, they say, you know what, this is really good for kids. You know what, it's really good for adults too, because if you become dehydrated for whatever reason, you not only lose the water, you also lose the electrolytes, the ions that are in the water as well. So let's find a way of putting them back in. Okay? Let's find a way of putting them back in. The last one is what is called protective proteins, what we were just talking about, your white blood cells. Okay? Protective proteins will attack foreign bodies inside your bloodstream, inside your body. If you get a sliver under your skin and you cannot get it out, it doesn't stay there forever. The body will send protective proteins to there and it will break that sliver down. It will break that piece of wood or whatever that is. Now, some things it can do a lot easier, some things it cannot. Sometimes it's better to get it out of the body right away, but even if you get a virus, a bacteria, your body recognizes it, says, oh, this thing doesn't belong here. I'm going to send some things over to take care of it. Those are protective proteins, ladies and gentlemen. Protective proteins. Questions? All right. Again, you don't need to worry about the examples. I just put them down there for you. Okay. So, again, we talked about functional groups in carbohydrates. Well, there are functional groups in proteins. Okay? These are what they look like. Again, just showing you them so that you have an idea. Here's your nitrogen, here's your carbons, oxygens, and hydrogens. These proteins are not very big things. They're small little chunks. But when you put them together with other little chunks, you begin to get things like bone, tissue, muscle, things like that. Okay? There are only 20 amino acids. Only 20 of them. But it's in how you put them together that makes the different things in the body. That makes the tissues, that makes the other things. Excuse me. Yes. Okay. He's not here today, but I'll give it to him when he does come. Thank you. Okay. All right. Questions? Now, again, it's a weird thing, but think of it like an alphabet. How many letters are there in our alphabet? 26. How many different words can we make?
Millions.
I would say even billions, right? Why? Because of arranging them in different orders, putting different ones together. Same idea here. Well, there are not a lot of amino acids. It all depends on how you put them together. So again, maybe you're lifting weights. Maybe you're trying to put on some weight for whatever reason, and you want to put on muscle. You do not want to put on fat. Maybe you will take a protein shake. Maybe you will go out and get some amino acids, which can come in different forms in weight supplements and things like that. Gives you the building blocks you need to add mass to your body in a good way. All right. So last couple things here, ladies and gentlemen. These are the last couple things. Vitamins. Okay. Now, anybody in here take a vitamin? A daily vitamin? You do? Why?
Because mine helps with like fatigue and stuff.
What?
Mine helps with like fatigue and stuff.
Okay. I don't know exactly how that would work. Because fatigue is being more tired. I know they make now one-a-day men's multivitamin gummies. That's what I take every day. Okay? But the reason I take it is this. Depends on your diet. Okay? Depends on your diet. Now again, too much of something is a bad thing. But if you do not have a wide variety in your diet, you may not be getting everything you need. Okay? If you go to McDonald's and they are out of special sauce, can they make you a Big Mac?
No.
Not a true Big Mac. They can make you a sandwich without it, right? But is it really a Big Mac if it doesn't have the special sauce? No. Okay? Can you put on a pair of shoes without laces? Sure. Probably going to fall off your feet as you walk during the day, right? Okay? Can you lace up your shoes without that little plastic thing on the end of the lace? Can you? Okay. Take the laces out of your shoes and put them back. Could you do that?
It's a lot harder.
It is, right? It is. The point being, sometimes it's the littlest things that make something easier, or that make it the Big Mac sandwich, or that make this complete. That's the thing about vitamins in the body. You don't need a lot of them, but you need them for some very specialized things, some very specialized reactions in the body. And if you don't have them, those things stop working. You can't do it. So again, if you don't have proteins in the body, you're not going to make muscle. If you don't have carbohydrates in the body, you're not going to make energy. If you don't have fats in the body, you're not going to store energy. Well, if you don't have vitamins in the body, certain specialized things will stop happening. Okay? Certain specialized things will stop happening. So vitamins are these biomolecules necessary for growth, health, and reproduction. And again, you don't need a lot of them. Matter of fact, you can take one vitamin a day and get most of your daily amount of all of your vitamins. Okay? By taking one vitamin. Well, then what if you do decide to eat healthy and eat some carrots, eat a salad, eat something like that? You get too many vitamins in you, you pee out what you don't need. Your body gets rid of it. Okay? Your body gets rid of it. But again, too much of a good thing is still a bad thing. So don't go crazy taking, people are like, well, if 2 vitamins are good, what would happen if I took 20? Oh my gosh. You'd be overloading on vitamin. Okay? And eventually, too much of anything is a bad thing for you. There are 13 essential vitamins. You can click on the link. You can look at it if you want. You can find out what each vitamin does. Okay? What is vitamin D important for? Bones. So where do they put it? What do we add it to? You know what product we add it to? What else is important for making bones in the body?
Calcium.
And how do little kids get both?
Milk.
Thank you. We literally add vitamin D to milk. Doesn't need to be in there. But we literally add it into there because we know if we can get kids to drink milk, it gives them 2 things. It gives them the vitamin and it gives them the calcium they need to build bone, to develop properly. You know what? The kid won't drink milk. What did we do? Let's make it chocolate. We're going to hide the good things by putting in some flavoring that, okay, hopefully more kids don't like chocolate. All right, we'll make it strawberry.
That's the good.
Okay? What?
That's the good.
Oh, I hate strawberry. Sorry. What part of the sentence do you not understand? We put vitamin C in orange juice. Why? Because it's, again, to help people. Okay? We add things. We add iron to cereals. We add these things because they need to get into your body. And if you're not getting them into your body, well, then you're going to have to take a vitamin to do it. Okay? You're going to have to take a vitamin to do it. And depending on what vitamin you're short on, your doctor will either tell you, hey, eat more of this or take one of these. You could, instead of maybe taking a multivitamin, my wife takes extra vitamin D every day. Just vitamin D. Why? Because in her diet, she's not getting enough of it. Okay? She doesn't like dairy. She doesn't like milk. She doesn't like a lot of things. I guess she still likes me. But anyway, so again, there are ways of making up for these things. Okay? The other part of this is what are called minerals. Now, minerals are basically like the elements of the periodic table. Matter of fact, some of them are. Iron is considered a mineral. Why? Because it can come out of the ground. Zinc is considered a mineral. Calcium, sodium, potassium. Okay? And again, these are elements that are necessary to sustain life. You cannot build bone in the body without calcium. Let's put it in milk. Let's convince little kids to drink it. You know what? While we're at it, we'll put some vitamin D in there for them as well. Okay? But again, if you're not getting enough minerals, you could take a zinc supplement. You could take an iron supplement. You could take a calcium supplement. And all you got to do is go to the vitamin aisle at any grocery store. Vitamin aisle at Target, the vitamin aisle at Festival, the vitamin aisle at Meijer, the vitamin aisle at Walmart. And they got it all for you, ladies and gentlemen. They got it all for you. Do you need one thing or do you need it all? Take a multivitamin if you need it all. If you just need one thing, take it. Okay? Take it. Okay? The help enzymes do their job. They maintain the health of certain organs, heart being one of the main ones. Okay? And there are what are called micro minerals and macro minerals. And I just pointed to them in the wrong way. But anyway, the macro minerals, macro means large, micro means small. So there are some things you need a little bit more of than others, but not a lot of these. Now, calories, you're taking in 2,000 a day. These could be 20 milligrams. Very small amount, but again, without them, the body can't do certain things. Questions? All right, what do I got next? Okay, some common minerals the body needs. Calcium for strong bones. Potassium for electrical activity in the heart, and also to prevent the body from doing what? Cramping up. Sodium to stimulate nerve cells. If you watched the videos yesterday, they talked about how sodium goes to the end of a neuron, transfers across, fires across from one neuron to the other, causes your body to contract muscles, things like that. Kayana, go. Can you give me just a couple minutes and I will be done? Okay, I'm literally just finishing up. Okay. Magnesium, nerves and muscles, and 300 other biochemical reactions. Phosphorus, building bones and teeth and repairing cells. Chloride for balance fluids and produce digestive juices. And trace minerals like iron and hemoglobin and iodine in your thyroid health. Okay? Again, I'm not expecting you to memorize these. I'm not going to quiz you on these. I'm just giving these to you as examples. Questions? Okay. That is where, yeah, that's where we're going to stop. Okay, that's where we're going to stop. So, Lucy.
What's in like prenatal vitamins?
I don't honestly know. I honestly don't. But I would assume there would be things that are in there for not only the health of the mother, but also for the health of the fetus. Because, again, what will happen with some women is when they are pregnant, that baby will take some of the nutrients, some of the things that the mom has in her and start using them, which would mean that there's a good possibility that depending on your diet, you may become lacking on those. So they'll ask you to take a prenatal vitamin as a precautionary measure to put those things in the body in extra. I don't know exactly what they are, though. Okay.
I think one of them is folic acid. Like for pregnant women, they say
Okay.
to take a lot of folic acid.
Okay, and again, I'm sorry, I've never been a pregnant woman. I don't know. And when the doctor talked to my wife about it, I guess I didn't pay that close attention. So, but again, it's a matter of some people will have enough in their diet to maintain them. But now when you put a little bit of a strain on the system by saying, okay, this fetus growing inside you is also going to need some of those things, let's up that for you so that we make sure you're not leaving yourself short. And that's also the reason why we didn't get into talking about it. But if people eat a vegan style of eating where they won't eat meat, they won't eat fish, they won't eat things like that, okay, now you're limiting your sources of getting proteins, you're limiting your sources of getting certain vitamins and certain minerals, so you have to make it up in other ways. And one of those ways would be a multivitamin or things like that, okay? Again, it may be healthier for you in some ways, but maybe not so much in others. And again, the reason they say to give children vitamins is because I don't know about you guys, but my kids' 3 major food groups growing up were macaroni and cheese, pizza, and hot dogs.
That's nice.
So with those 3 food groups, they didn't get a lot of vegetables, so they didn't get a lot of minerals and things. And maybe that's why my son is short like he is, because we stunted his growth and he never would take his vitamins when he was younger. Who knows? Okay? All right. So you've got 2 things that you can work on, ladies and gentlemen. There is a facts worksheet that is due tomorrow. A lot of you did not turn in your lab. I don't know if that's because you needed more time on it or because you just haven't gotten it done or because you feel like you can turn it in whenever you want. But please work on those things. Get them turned into me. Kehana, go ahead and go to the bathroom. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you need help with either the worksheet or the lab, please raise your hand and I will be happy to come over and assist you. Okay? If you need to get with your partner on the lab for some reason, please feel free to do that as well.